Hi and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by, and if you've been here for a minute, we're going to change directions today. So I've been sick and I've been researching some things that are interesting to me, unsolved mysteries, missing people, paranormal kind of stuff, and I ran across this story yesterday that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm in Tennessee, and so of course the history of Tennessee always intrigues me as far as the paranormal side, like the actual history, like who fought who in the war, what side did we, I'm not interested in stuff like that. I am definitely interested in the paranormal kind of stuff. And so yesterday I found this story about the Craigmiles, and I want to tell you guys this story because it's so sad and yet it's so amazing at the same time, because there could be an explanation and yet there's really not. It's one of those iffy kind of things. And I need an eyeglass cloth. Hold on, let me disappear. Okay, I need to do a what's in my bag, because that would be absolutely hilarious. I carry a Mary Poppins bag, literally. I have everything in here that I need. I'm a nurse. I'm always on the go. You never know what's going to happen. Are you going to get snowed in at work? Are you going to be halfway home and have to attend to something? So I am prepared. Okay. Let me clean my glasses while I get started. So 1800s, think Little House on the Prairie. Everybody has a horse and buggy. You have your little town doctor who makes house calls, and that's the era, that's the timeline, time frame, time period. That's what I'm looking for. Hi, welcome to 5 o'clock on a Sunday when I've been at work for 14 days straight and I'm sick. So 1850, John Craigmiles, he is in Alabama. Is it Alabama or Georgia? Georgia. He was in Georgia, and him and his brother are running this little business together, and he decides he wants to come to Tennessee and open a textile. And think of it's like a mercantile store. Like, they have a little bit of everything, any of your home goods they could order. And then he got into shipping and getting and sending, okay, that's a little better, receiving and shipping goods. So like dishes and, you know, furniture and things like that you would go and order. So think of primitive Sears and Roebuck. Okay, you can get anything you need from the store. Sometimes you just have to wait on it to get here. So in 1850 he comes from Georgia and he moves to Tennessee. Him and his brother, for whatever reason they called his brother Green. May have been a call name, a nickname, I don't know. His parents may have named him Green, but that's how they refer to him in everything. Let me see if I can't not get right in your face, but let me see if I can't turn that little. And that did absolutely nothing. Hi, big close-up right there. That was scary. Sorry, guys. So him and his brother pack up their horse and buggy and they come to Tennessee and they start this mercantile, and they're doing really good. And after a few years of being here, John is just not happy. He just feels like there's more that he should be doing. So he takes off and starts traveling, and he goes from Tennessee to California, everywhere in between, and starts getting into trade in, you know, the goods business is what it was referred to in several of the articles that I had found. And he was doing okay, and then you know, back in the 1800s, business wasn't any more steady than it is now. Commerce was up and down just like it is, and so he hit a rough spot. And he ended up, on one of his travels back to Tennessee, he came and he spoke with his brother and he borrowed $600. And he heads back out and he takes this $600 and having an entrepreneurial type mind, he ends up getting himself immersed into overseas trading, which gave him a huge leap ahead of his competitors in the shipping and the trades industry, and he ended up coming back to Tennessee in 1857. And if I'm looking at this way, it's because that's where my notes are, so I get people's names and the dates kind of correct. But like I said, I'm still sick, and so there's going to be some stuff that I'm off, you know, may misquote, whatever. I'll edit my video and laugh at myself because I'll say somebody's name and mean somebody else, but in my head it sounds right, and I just don't catch it till I'm editing, and then by then I'm like, whatever. So John has taken off. He's went and reinvented himself, basically, and he comes back to Tennessee to work with his brother, and he and his brother are in Cleveland, Tennessee, and they're doing amazing. They have this little store, and take a sip of the coffee and my Curiouser and Curiouser Alice in Wonderland amazing coffee cup. There's Alice. I have to take some sinus medicine too, so let me get that down real quick. Those are some pretty big pills. So him and his brother are doing really well. They're running this mercantile, and they're doing okay. Well, John ends up meeting a woman in Cleveland. Her name was Adelia, and which I love the names that come out in this story. I've always loved old-fashioned names. He meets Adelia, and they start courting, and he finds out that her dad is the town doctor. Her dad's name is Gideon, and he is that little house on the prairie doctor that comes to your house in a horse and buggy, delivers your babies at home, brings you the little glass bottles of medicine. Like, this is deep in the 1800s, okay? And when I was researching, I realized I think my soul belongs in the 1800s, because that is, like, I was so in love with the whole plot and storyline and everything and I read multiple different stories yesterday about this time frame. I think that's where I was supposed to be. I think I was born in the wrong time. I really do. But anyway, so Gideon is the town doctor, and he has his daughter Adelia, and she is his pride and joy, of course, and she has fallen in love and started courting this guy John, who is very well off. So Gideon gives his blessing, and John and Adelia get married. I can't find the date that they got married. It was in 1860. It was in December of 1860. They were married. He came back in 57. They met, they courted in 1860. They got married, and then in 1864, 4 years after being married, this lovely couple who owns the town mercantile, the country store basically, and her dad is the country doctor, so they're prominent in this family, or in this community. Everybody knows them, and in 1864 they have their daughter. They name their daughter Nina, which happens to be my husband's Pomeranian's name. And she is loved by everybody. She's like, you know, they say it takes a village. Well, in this story, when I was researching it, that really came to life, because she would ride when she, you know, got a little bit older, toddler, 4 and 5-ish. She started riding with her grandpa Gideon and going out on his house calls and hanging out with him at his actual office in town. And she would go visit all of the shopkeepers throughout the town, and she was always smiling, and she was just this lovely, well-behaved, well-mannered young lady, and the entire town just loved her. She was just, from everything I could read, everybody said how amazing this little girl was. And so let me see if, nope, that didn't help either. Still looking for a way to get the glare off my glasses. If I take them off, I have to squint so bad, and I already have these big, huge bags, and I'm losing weight, so my face is falling. So, anyway, I can't ever stay on track. So they have Nina, and she is growing up, and she is a happy, healthy child, and her grandpa is the town doctor, and she's riding in the buggy with him all the time, and Gideon would let her take the reins and run the buggy for him, and they were very, very close. She was the only grandchild, and the whole town, much less the family, doted on her. So she's 7. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, the birds are tweeting, and Grandpa has a little bit of free time. And so they decide that they are going to go out and just have a horse buggy ride. Horse and buggy? I don't know. They're gonna have a buggy ride. It's a beautiful day. They're gonna go for a short little jaunt out, and then they're gonna come home, and tragedy falls. Gideon had let Nina take the reins, and there's multiple different variations to this because nobody was actually there other than Gideon, who survived. He says in his reports after the tragedy, let me get to it. Okay, so basically they're out in this buggy ride, they're enjoying the day, it's beautiful, and somehow the horse and buggy ended up crossing in front of a train. Gideon was thrown from the buggy, and Nina was killed instantly. Excuse me, sorry. And nowhere, you guys know I'm an animal lover, nowhere could I find if the horse made it or not. I'm assuming no. And here comes the cough spell, which is why I'm really going to the doctor. I can't stand all this congestion and coughing for 3 months. So Gideon gets thrown from the buggy, and he survives, and he recounts the tale as not remembering exactly what happened, which is, it's plausible. I mean, that would be a huge trauma, because you think about it, a stagecoach basically gets hit by a moving train, and even though they didn't go as fast in the 1800s as they do now because they were steam engines, it still would have been such a valid impact that you would expect that he would have some memory loss, not to mention just the trauma of the fact that you're out gallivanting and having a great time with your granddaughter, and then all of a sudden there's this accident and your granddaughter's taken from you. So he can't remember exactly what happens. He doesn't know if he had let Nina take the reins, which at 7 she would not have thought to pull back and stop the carriage. She may not have understood the distance between the two, and it is very possible that Grandpa was trying to beat the train to get to the other side. So regardless, we don't know the exact cause. Sorry, I'm playing with my hair a lot. It's just really bugging me as I sit here. The glare on my glasses and the fact that my hair keeps falling in my face is killing me. And I'm just easily annoyed when I don't feel well, which is why I have not done a lot of videos. So Nina's gone. The whole town falls into mourning. It was truly like every family, from everything I could read, it was like every family felt the loss of this child. Of course, Adelia is completely shattered. Her life is like completely over. She has lost her only child to a tragic accident. Her father has been severely injured, and the world stopped for a little bit. Well, when they were finished with their grieving, John, Adelia's husband, Nina's father, decides that he is going to have a church. They had a church, but it wasn't accommodating everything, I think is how I understood it. And so John decides he's going to have a church built in memory of his daughter. And he did. He had, it's St. Luke's Episcopal Church in downtown Cleveland, Tennessee. It is a historic land site. You can go online and look. There are tons of pictures, and I was going to try to insert a picture, but I'm at work. Maybe when I edit this tonight, maybe I'll try to slam a picture in there. But it's absolutely beautiful. And there's stories to say that when, so the whole project, Nina died in 1871 when she was 7, and the church actually opened, she died October 18th in 1871, and the church opened exactly 3 years later in 1874 on the anniversary of her death, which happened to be St. Luke's Day. And so they named the church St. Luke's Episcopal Church in downtown Cleveland. So I encourage you to hop online if you're interested in any of this and take a little peek and see what I'm talking about. The church is absolutely amazing. Well, in the back of the church, John decided to have a mausoleum built. He felt like he really wanted the memory of his daughter to never be lost, and that he wanted to commemorate her. Is that the right word? Memorialize her. And so he had this mausoleum built. Well, the mausoleum was built out of white Italian marble. This man spared no expense. He built this church, and there are stories that when the construction was done and they actually opened the church, he threw the key. He was standing out front, and he unlocked the door, and he opened it, and he threw the key and told the town, because they had all gathered in front of the church, and he told the town, the doors will always be open, because Nina would have wanted that. Nina would have wanted the church to be a safe haven for anyone who needed it. And the way that him and his family looked at it was like God was taking care of them, and they needed to take care of other people. So that's part of the folklore, is that he threw the key and that the doors were never to be locked. The doors are locked today. Well, not today. I mean, it's Sunday. Of course, they're going to be open today. But in today's time, the doors do get locked. Just for the safety of I keep hearing these weird sounds out in the hallway by my office. Is kind of creeping me out a little. So the mausoleum was built, and it was Italian white marble that he had shipped in, again, in the shipping trade, so he, I'm sure, had some connections. And it was 34 feet high, I think is what I read. I didn't write down the measurements, but it was this massive mausoleum. And inside had 6 shelves, and Nina was placed in there. And on top of her tomb, when they placed her body, they had a marble sculpture of a blanket with a cross on the top of it placed on top of her. And so when you go in, that's the first thing you see, is her tomb with this marble blanket looking adornment with a cross on top. So they put Nina in, and things start going, they start kind of getting, I guess, back to what you would consider normal. Nothing's ever normal after you lose a child, I'm sure. And Adelia and John end up pregnant again. They have a son. He lives just a few hours, to the point they didn't even name him. He was called just baby Craigmiles. And they placed him in the mausoleum with his sister. Within days, on the outside of the mausoleum, where the archway is above the door, there were red, rust blood colored, oh, that's funny that I wore this today, stains on the outside of the mausoleum. And so, being practical, John goes and cleans the mausoleum, and it's white again. So they go on, they have buried their second child, and tragedy hits again. John is walking in downtown Cleveland. It is wintertime. The streets are icy. He slips. He has a fall. He develops an infection, which they called a blood infection at that time, which I'm sure we would refer to as sepsis nowadays. He probably had some underlying conditions, and they didn't have the capability back then to treat it like we do now with the intensive antibiotics and hospital stays and things like that. And what caught me during that was like a big sound out there. Hold on a second. Hold on. I can't wait to go back and edit this and see if the bang that I heard can be heard in the video. But what caught me while I was reading this is here's this very prominent businessman who has lost these two amazing children, and his father-in-law was still a doctor. And he died from what we would know as sepsis. Tragic, ironic, all of those things come to mind. So John dies. He is placed in the mausoleum with Nina, an unnamed baby boy, and all of a sudden the red is back. The red is on the outside of the mausoleum, in the archway, and on the columns, and it is blood colored, but it's darker this time. The town goes out, cleans it off. Adelia ends up marrying again, and she's trying to go on with her life, and bless her, she, at this point, now that she's remarried, she has lost her daughter, her son, her husband of the time, and her father, because he has passed by now. She's remarried, and she's like, we're gonna do this, like, we're gonna move on. And she's walking in downtown Cleveland and gets hit by a car. Tragically struck down in downtown Cleveland, and she was placed in the mausoleum with her ex-husband and her two children. And I couldn't find anything about her husband that she was married to at that time other than his name, which I didn't write it down. He's not a pivotal character in the story. He just went on with his life. Afterwards, there's not really a mention of him. There was no mention of him mourning and, like, you know, being tragically upset that his wife just got mowed down by a car. So couldn't find a lot on him. So Adelia is placed in the mausoleum, which is stark white when she's placed in there, and the door's shut, and the next day the archway and the columns are again blood red, but darker than the last time. So every time somebody is added to this mausoleum, the red comes back on the Italian marble, and it's darker than the last time. So this is the 1800s. Like, you don't have spray cans, you don't have blood colored paint. I mean, barn red, I guess, but you don't have vandalism in the 1800s like we do now. And so back then it was not even a consideration. What they did think was that weathering on the marble was causing these different colors, the red, to come through. But it was funny that that was the only color. There was only red was coming through on this marble tile, or Italian marble. It's not tile. I have marble tiles in my home, and so I always want to say marble tile. It's not tile, it's marble columns. And so in this mausoleum, we have Nina, unnamed baby boy, mom and dad, and the blood stains are back on the outside of the mausoleum. So for a while they just leave them, and it becomes folklore, and it becomes this great story to tell. And the town of Cleveland cleans off the mausoleum again, names it a historical site. It's in the National Register of Historical Places. It was placed in there in 1982, and the story just keeps getting told over and over and over again, and the red stains keep coming back. They clean them off. They according to some of the research that I found, the town of Cleveland did some vigilant research and watching and like stakeouts to make sure that it wasn't vandalism. They would clean it off, and then it would appear within a day or two. It was not vandalism, it was just appearing. And so of course they did some what did they say? They did some testing on it. Chemical analysis. They did I'm a nurse and I don't know why I didn't think of that word. They did some chemical analysis on this staining, and it was unidentified. It was not identified as blood. It was not identified as weathering. It was not identified as, I did some research, and there was some there was a couple of things that I ran across on the internet that said with Italian marble, sometimes it has an element in it that with weathering it will like leach out to the top of the exposed marble, and it will cause different colors. Well, this wasn't different colors. Again, this was just blood red, only getting darker with each addition to the mausoleum. And it just randomly appeared. It did not appear according to like variations in the weather, not, you know, super hot day and all of a sudden the marble's sweating and here comes this leaching of this lead or whatever was in it. It was unexplained, and it just keeps reappearing. And so they've debunked the whole vandalism thing, and they have done the chemical analysis, and they clean it, and it still comes back. And so the folklore says that it's Nina, with each person from her family that gets added into the mausoleum. It's her tears. She was not a stigmata, so I don't believe it's her tears. I think that when her father made the statement that he did not want Nina to be forgotten, that he wanted her memory to live on, I think that's her way of saying, I'm still here. Oh, I sound horrible, sorry. I think that's her way of identifying and saying, hey, I'm still here. So it's in Cleveland, Tennessee. It is a national historical mark, and so if you get a chance, look it up on the internet. If you get a chance to stop by, like if you're in Tennessee or if you live close to Cleveland, head on over there. They do allow visitors to come up. I personally looked up yesterday how far it would be for me to get there. I think I'm gonna plan in the spring to go. That way, you know, it won't be too hot, it won't be too cold. I think I would like to go and look at the stains myself, but also do some EVP. I was trying to find yesterday, which I'm going to look up a little bit more today and see if I can find if anybody has done any EVP type research at the mausoleum itself to see if maybe Nina's trying to tell us what the red stains are for. But I plan on making a trip, and that won't be until the spring, but it'll be a nice follow-up to this one. So yeah, I just had to share that story. I mean, it's tragic and it's heartbreaking and it's beautiful, and it's just one of those stories where you're like, man, like, as a mom, I can't imagine. I mean, your 7-year-old gets ripped out of your arms, jaunting in a buggy with your dad almost dies, and then you have a son and you think life's gonna get back on track, and then he only lives a few hours, and then you lose your dad, and then your husband dies, and then you remarry and you get run over, and like, I can't, it's just tragedy after tragedy for this family. Their name can still be seen downtown over, I want to say it was, it's one of the landmarks downtown in Cleveland, and I should have wrote that down. It's like over a hotel or an old movie theater or something like that in Cleveland. Like, their name marquee is still up there. They are still very much talked about in the town, and so I can't wait to get out there and see for myself, because I feel like as a mom, if there is a child there and she is reaching out through this staining system every time somebody from her family was added in, maybe she's got something she wants to say, and maybe as a mom, who knows? So we'll have to catch that update in the spring. So thanks guys for stopping by and putting up with the glare on the glasses and the Kermit the Frog sounding man horse voice that I have going on, the crazy hair. Hope you enjoyed the story, and I will see you next time. Peace and palm love.